Hello class, we're now continuing our Unit 4 review that you need to help you pass your Unit 4 test. So what is this green stuff called? I don't know if you've heard of it, but I call this algae, and the question we're about to do is going to be talking about algae covering a pond and trying to treat it with some medicine so it goes away. The area in square meters of a pond covered by algae bloom decreases exponentially after treatment is applied. The following table represents the area covered by the algae in square meters after treatment is applied. So on day 0, there's 360 meters squared of algae, and you notice after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, the numbers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Determine the exponential function that represents this situation. So we're going to use the same thing always. Initial amount times growth factor to the power of x, f of x, is equal to the initial amount, which is 360, times the growth factor. What is happening here? What are we, 360 to go to 120, to go to 40? What's happening here? If you notice that we are dividing by 3 every time, and dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by 1/3. So our growth factor here is 1/3, creating the function that is 360 times 1/3 to the power of x. That function will produce these exact numbers if we use them and type them into decimals. Now another pond also it has algae bloom, and it's also decreasing exponentially. The area of this bloom in square meters is given by that function, b of d is equal to 300 times 2 to the power of negative d over 2, where d is days. So we have a function here, and the other one we just had a table. Where d is days is the measurement of the bloom. Which of the two is larger initially? How do you know? Well, the initial amount of algae on the first bloom, which is A, is 360. I could tell from the table and from what I used when I created the function. Here, the function tells us the initial amount, it is 300. So we'll say pond A has more algae. And you have to tell me, how do you know? 360, kind of out of room here, versus 300. So I would need to know here that you know where to look for the initial amounts, 360 for the pond A and 300 for pond B. And that takes us through this first part of question number 3. Moving on.